This program is designed to serve as a forum for discussion of the social, economic, and political conditions of the world and local community. The panelists that appear on Signs of the Times are individuals who, despite their diversity, have a common bond which links them. That is their study of history and their love and their concern for humanity. This is a live broadcast, and we welcome your phone calls at 770-559-2999. That's 770-559-2999. How many of you went trick-or-treating last night? There are many people that received treats, but there were those also that received tricks. We'd like to talk about that tonight, and we welcome your phone calls. Tonight we have with us the elder priest of the New Covenant Congregation of Israel, Yaakov Ben Israel. This is our Ask the Elder segment, where you have an opportunity to call in to interact with the elder regarding topics that are raised on this program or things that you may have on your mind as well. So without further ado, let me welcome the elder. Elder, shalom.
Shalom, my brother. How you doing?
Oh, doing well. As I mentioned, there were those that got many treats last night, but there were those also that received a trick. Speaking of this couple, the man was 60 years old, I believe his wife 58. Kids come to the door dressed in Star Wars, Darth Vader type costumes, and gave these folks a trick.
Right.
Shot the man in the leg, I think, and shot the woman in the chest. Is that what Halloween is all about, or is it really about something that, you know, that's a little bit more dignified than that?
Well, Halloween is basically, you know, you sit back a long time, you know, from a child, you see these things progress and progress, and each generation pick it up and they add a little bit to it. But when you get right back down to the roots of it, we say today, well, it's all right, you know, dress up the kids all year long. Excuse me. All year long, we want our little children to be perfect little angels. And then one night out of the year, we want them to dress up as ghoulish as they can, whatever costume they want to, and carry out the rituals of Samhain. You see, it's nothing but another form of worshiping of the devil. But see, the thing of it is this: man just don't seem to realize that all of these paganisms are right here today. See, they say, well, we conquered this for Jesus, and we conquered that for Jesus, but yet and still, if you conquered it for him, why are you still carrying out these pagan rituals that were started by Europeans, especially our folks? You know, the guy next door to me, he goes to New Birth, and I asked him, I said, well, brother, what's all that stuff that you got in your yard? You know, what's that all about? He said, well, you know, it's for the kids. I asked him, I said, well, have you ever studied the, what this is the Halloween, All Hallows Eve is all about? Well, no, I heard. See?
But it's for the kids.
It's for the kids, but he heard, so he think it's all right because he's seen it done, you know, different people doing it, the kids dressed up in cartoon. It's similar to a semi-gala affair for the kids to get out and go trick-or-treat and get candies and so forth. But I remember a few years ago, brother, you know, people had been down on trick-or-treaters a lot. Trick-or-treaters has gotten, in the years past, they've gotten some pretty evil things put on. People used to put razor blades and fruit, and they'd lace candy with different kind of drugs and so forth and so on, you know. But what it is actually the worship of the adversary, the devil. But you know, amazingly, when you look around, when we consider all the things that the nations are off into, they got their gods with them today. They brought their gods all the way out of the Old Testament, their pagan deities, brought them up through the New Testament, and then brought them right over here in America with them and got them set up. To show you what I mean, Yahweh said, don't make anything to represent me. Okay? When you go down the street and you see a cross on a church, the first thing you say, they're Christians.
Christians, right.
Right? They're service of God. They're Christians, right? That cross is their symbol. The Muslims got a crescent moon and a star, right? Now, Esau came up with him a symbol. It's a 6-point star. Now, they use that 6-point star and they use that menorah to say, well, we're the Jews, you see. But Yahweh said, look, don't make nothing with me. But when you see those things, the first thing you think about is these are the people that was chosen by the true and living God, you see. And Yahweh told them, say, don't deal with that. It's like this. If you and I standing on one side of the street and you give me a gun and you say, well, take this gun over there to those people over there in that building over there, right? So I say, okay, so I take the gun over there to the people over there. The people get the gun and they shoot everybody, right? I'm just as guilty as you are because I did an accessory before the fact. Well, it's the same thing that happens with us when we get off into these pagan rituals and deities and so forth. We're accessories to crimes that's being set up.
Well, you spoke about the demons and the goblins and all that other stuff, folks. You know, and you say, well, people teach their children all year to be angels, so to speak, and things of that sort, to be good. But then all of a sudden, you have this one day when everybody says, okay, it's okay to be evil, as if people were not evil already. But it's interesting, it reminds me of something that Moses said, and even Paul reiterated in the New Testament. It said the things that the Gentiles sacrifice to, they sacrifice to devils, and not to God.
And I would not that you have fellowship with devils. But see, you drive down the street, you see the big churches, right, with all the pumpkins and everything on the grounds, you know. And what are they going to do with those pumpkins? Make jack-o'-lanterns, you see. And see, all of the pagan things that we are celebrating today, when you look right at it, the church is solidly behind these things because, like the scripture said about America, she's mad on her idols. And you can, anywhere you go, you can see paganistical symbols that's displayed, and the average person don't even know that these things exist simply because they aren't being taught anything in the church. But amazingly, though, my brother, in the midst of all these pagan people and all the rituals and so forth that they are going through, prophecies are still being fulfilled. See, the prophecies pertaining to, like Yahweh said, I divided all those pagan gods to the nations, but with you it's not so, Israel. See, I reveal myself to you, you see. So what it is that when you look around and see there are many, many Hebrew camps that's springing up all over the country, see, but it's a reason for that. It's almost time for the reformation of our people, for the regathering of everything, so that the earth can rejuvenate itself again, because man has almost destroyed it.
So you anticipate then more camps to be started in different areas?
Sure, sure. They know the camps all over the country. Yahweh has a number of priests out here, and all of them haven't attained to their perfection. They haven't attained to the number of people that they need to attain to yet. So what is happening is this: camps are springing up everywhere. As a matter of fact, even from our congregation, there's a camp spring up in Carolina, then another camp spring up in Memphis, and now one is spring up in Dallas, you see. But they all came out of this congregation here, and those brothers say, hey, look, we going here, we're going to get this started, and so forth and so on. But what it does is this: 20 years ago, you could hardly find a Hebrew camp. Now they are everywhere, simply because it's the time of our 400-year captivity that was mentioned in Genesis 15:13. It's time for the deliverance out of this final 400-year captivity.
You know, you was talking earlier, you said, when you see a cross, you know those are Christians. When you see a crescent moon and star, those are the Muslim. And you see the Ankh sign, those are, either somebody off into the Egyptology or perhaps even some kind of African religion. What is the sign that, and you mentioned about the menorah and the star, that six-pointed star. What is the sign of the children of Israel?
You should know them because they keep his commandments. That's the way that you know. The children of Israel didn't have any sign. Yahweh told us, look, don't you make nothing to represent me in the heavens above, on the earth, or even in the water or under the earth, right? And see, the children of Israel, when they get off into these things, then they're in violation of the laws of God. But see, what we do is we see other nations do these things, and it seems to be fashionable. So some of us even get off into those paganistic symbols. As a matter of fact, you can go around some of the brothers under the old covenant and some of them under the new covenant, and they still using that little 6-point star, calling it the Star of David, right? The Messiah was the Star of David. When the scriptures say a star shall arise out of Jacob, it was talking about the Messiah. But see, Esau started using that symbol in the 3rd century A.D.
Who is Esau?
Esau is Jacob's brother. The people over there in the land now that's claimed to be Jews. You see, they took over in 1948. Those were the Herodians in the New Testament when Christ was here. And if you read the history of that, when Jerusalem fell in 70 A.D., the Herodians didn't have nobody to govern. So they went in Europe. Okay, this is where the Herodians came out of when they came back into Israel, saying that they were the Jews, right? And interestingly enough, the United States, at that time, Israel was a British province.
Okay.
And they relinquished their power, let the Israelis come in, and Europe and America backed them in that coup of getting taking part of the city from the Palestinians. But see, here we were over here in this land here calling ourselves African Americans. So who was to say, well, look, these are imposters that are going in our land, because we didn't have any power. See, we didn't have a government system. Satan has making sure that he has taken all of our power. But see, let me read something to you about that, my brother, out of the prophet Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 8, and I'm going to pick this up at verse 9. See, we've gotten to the place to where everything that we deal with, we get from other people, right? Listen to this. Now it says, this is Isaiah chapter 8 and verse 9. It says, associate yourselves, O you people, and you shall be broken in pieces. And give ear, all you far countries. Gird yourselves, in other words, get ready for war, right? And you shall be broken in pieces. Gird yourself, and you shall be broken in pieces. Take counsel together, and it shall come to naught. Speak the word, and it shall not stand, because Yahweh is with us. For Yahweh spoke thus with me of a strong hand, instructed me that I should not walk in the way of this people, saying, don't say a confederacy to all to whom this people shall say a confederacy, neither fear you the things that they fear, nor be afraid. Have you noticed that everything that we deal with, we get from other people, and our fear of God is taught to us through the precept of media? See, we say, well, you know, I heard a lady once say, well, God isn't going to kill anybody, you know. God doesn't. God is love. Folks dying every day. See, verse 13, this is Isaiah 8 and verse 13. It says, sanctify Yahweh of hosts himself, and let him be your fear, and let him be your dread. And he shall be for a sanctuary, but for a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense to both the houses of Israel, for a gin and a snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. Look what has happened to it. We are snared up into everything that the other nations have, and we don't even have a viable income, let alone leaders. We haven't even got a viable income in our neighborhood. And the things that we deal with out of religion, we join on to whatever is already started. But we had a religion when we were in our own land. See, as a matter of fact, there's some people over in Ethiopia even today, that's the remainder of our people, that's still practicing Judaism under the old form of things. So we're the only ones, when you look at the religions and things that's going on today, we grab on to everything that everybody else has, because we have associated ourselves and become confederate with our enemy, think that's going to make our enemy love us. It's verse 15. And many among them shall stumble and fall and be broken and be snared and be taken. Bind up the testimony, seal the law among my disciples. See, the church tells us today we don't have to keep no law. That's why all this paganism is going on, you see. But Yahweh told Isaiah, say, bind up the testimony and seal the law among my disciples, which came in the New Testament, right? And I will wait upon Yahweh to hide his face from the house of Jacob, and I will look for him. And when they shall say unto you, seek unto them that have familiar spirits, those psychics and so forth, and unto wizards that peep, and that murder, should not a people seek unto their God for the living to the dead, to the law and to the testimony? If they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them. And they shall pass through it hardly bestead and hungry, and it shall come to pass that when they shall be hungry for knowledge, right?
Okay.
They shall fret themselves and curse their king that they have set over them, and their God that they believe in it, and look up. And they shall look upon the earth and behold trouble and darkness, dimness and anguish, and they shall be driven into darkness. Show you what I mean by that, brother. You can go out now. One day, some brothers and I got a picture of a European with long blonde hair and blue eyes, right? And we went down into our neighborhood at a McDonald's and stood at the door. And all of the kids that came up, we showed them that picture, say, who is this? Do you know 95% of those kids said, that's Jesus? Why? Because somebody drew it, well, somebody took a picture of it, mass produced it, put it on the wall, and people looked up and they shall fret themselves and curse their king that they have set over them, and their God that they believe in it, and look up. And they shall look upon the earth and behold trouble and darkness, dimness and anguish, and they shall be driven into darkness. Show you what I mean by that, brother. You can go out now. One day, some brothers and I got a picture of a European with long blonde hair and blue eyes, right? And we went down into our neighborhood at a McDonald's and stood at the door. And all of the kids that came up, we showed them that picture, say, who is this? Do you know 95% of those kids said, that's Jesus? Why? Because somebody drew it, well, somebody took a picture of it, mass produced it, put it on the wall, and people looked up and said, let me read something else to you that he said he was going to do out of the prophet Jeremiah here, and then you can see why there's so many camps that's coming up now. This is in Jeremiah 16, and I'm going to pick this up at verse Jeremiah 16, and I think I'm going to pick this up at verse 13. Therefore will I cast you out of this land into a land that you know not, neither you nor your fathers. Now, America hadn't been discovered back in those days, right? And there shall you serve other gods day and night, where I will show you no favor. We serve the gods of the nations. Therefore, behold, the days come, saith Yahweh, that it shall no more be said that Yahweh liveth that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. But Yahweh lived that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north and from the lands whither I have driven them, and I will bring them again into their own land that I've given unto their fathers. Behold, I will send for many fishers, saith Yahweh, and they shall fish for them. Well, see, this is the thing that's going on today. Yahweh is sending many fishers out here, and they're bringing in the sheep to the fold, reading this book to them, and giving them the truth in the word of the Bible. Because there's a lot of people out here that is looking for the truth. You'd be surprised the people that's going to the church that don't even believe what's being taught. But they go because their mamas went and their great-grandmamas went and so forth and so on. But like I tell everybody, I say, look, ignorance of God's law is no excuse. If you don't know His law, you need to ask yourself a question: why don't I know it? Seeing that that's what I'm going to be judged by. Now, any man that think that he can live on this earth and be judged and don't have a set of standards to judge himself by, then he is destined for that lake of fire. And to show you something, brother, you know, most people that you talk to that profess to be religious and so forth and so on, you know they don't know the difference between hell and the lake of fire. Everybody think hell, a lot of people think hell is a place down under the ground that you're going to see some weird looking dude in a red suit and a pitchfork. See, because that's what we was given by the Europeans, right? When Satan didn't look like that at all. He was a beautiful angel. We understand that. But most people believe in that lie because it was taught to them by their peers and by their fathers, and they passed it down and down, say, man, you're going to die and go to hell. If you die, if they bury you, the scripture tell you hell is the grave. Everybody that dies is going to hell, but the thing of it is there's going to be a judgment one day. And once that judgment comes, the ones that face that great white throne judgment is coming there for one purpose and one purpose alone: to be thrown in the lake of fire. You know why? They didn't walk according to the laws of God, which He said was His ways, and He gave that law to us to teach to the world. We didn't teach it to the world, and He brought us over here as slaves, right? So you can imagine what's going to happen to the other nations.
Well, you know, speaking of, you was talking about folks going to hell and all that stuff and the pitchforks and things. You know, there was a dramatization of where this place out in, I forgot the state, they were doing the Halloween haunted house and all that kind of stuff. And you talked about how different generations come along, they add a little bit more to it, and they add a little bit more to it. I remember even times when Christmas came around, people got apples and oranges. Then they got off into the toys and the presents and things. Well, with this Halloween thing, there's a dramatization at this one haunted house where they're reliving the Columbine shootings.
Oh, wow.
They're reliving, you know, car wrecks and all this kind of stuff. You know, it went from, you know, something that was not so, I mean, it's all based up in, you know, demonic worship and all that kind of stuff, but nevertheless, as each generation has come along, they've added more and more to it. This one lady and her family, their house got national attention because the house looks like a graveyard. National attention because they fixed the whole house up, the yard and everything. You walk by, it looked like a graveyard.
Well, brother, when you check back into our the history of our captors, you're going to find out that they always have like that gory stuff, all that blood and guts and so forth. This is why sports is so popular today, especially boxing, brother. They love that blood and guts, man, simply because it's of their nature to want to spill man's blood. To show you what I mean, all a person got to do is go back and read the history of the Crusades. And these Europeans, these Christians, have spread blood all over the world under the sign of that cross. Now they're doing it, and they're not going in there saying, well, we're going to take Christianity in there. Now they're going in there saying, we're going to take democracy in there. And we know that a democracy is nothing but a broken down republic. This is why Yahweh right now, Yahweh is allowing the adversary, the devil, to put this one world system into place. See, that way, when he show up, he can show his great power. Now, all the nations talk about, well, you know, we're serving the Lord, we know the Lord and all this stuff, don't even know his name, but yet instead, but they're quick to say, hallelujah, which means praise Yahweh. And the average person to say it don't even know what he's saying. He thinks it's just something, a cliche that comes out of the church, you know, that you just got to say, hallelujah, you know, when it means praise Yahweh. But Let me read you something.
Before you read that, Elder, we're going to go to the Around the World report. We'll be right back, and you can finish up with that in Jeremiah.
Okay.
So we'll be right back.
First on our community update, I'm Ruth Israel. Are African American fathers necessary? Black scholars and community activists attended a historic conference sponsored by Morehouse College and the Institute for American Values to talk about the politics of fatherlessness. Some advocates were attempting to defend black single-parent families, but they failed to realize they were sending troubling messages. First, that black children are different from white children and they don't need fathers or any male head in the family. Secondly, black men are different from white men in that black men can move away from family without any care of further responsibility. According to national statistics, 70% of black children are born out of wedlock, and more than 1/2 of black marriages end in separation or divorce. Other striking statistics show 86% of unmarried black males earn less than $18,000 annually compared to 68% of unmarried white males. A decline in male wages certainly play a critical role in deciding whether family or marriage is of any importance. We all must remember that Yahweh is the head of the man and the man is the head of the household. And turning to our nation, a Raleigh Superior Court judge lost a bid for a higher position because he announced that he is a homosexual. This is the first Republican to openly admit his sexuality and continue to hold a state public office. Look for more to come as American culture moves closer to that of Sodom and Gomorrah. A study by government scientists shows summers and winters have gotten hotter and stickier in the United States in the past few decades. The study also notes the humidity has been rising several percentage points per decade. The end is surely near. We can hardly recognize the seasons anymore. And finally tonight, a jury in Fort Worth, Texas deliberated 4 hours before announcing they would execute a man for using a 19-year-old retarded woman for target practice before finally killing her. Texas is known to be more expedient when making decisions regarding executions. This has been the community update, and now we'll have Maskell with the Around the World report. Maskell?
Thank you, Ruth. Was it a trick or a treat? This past First Day, Pope John Paul praised highly of the doctrinal accord signed between the Roman Catholic and Lutheran Church, saying it was a sign of hope for Europe when the division of the Protestant and Catholic Church occurred more than 480 years ago. Senior clerks from Catholic and Lutheran churches signed the Doctrinal Accord Declaration on Reformation Sunday in the German city of Augsburg. Also in the news, the eagle and the bear trained together. In Russia, the United States-funded Nuclear Security Center opened today to train Russian officers to use detection equipment and guard atomic weapons storage sites in efforts to hinder the risk of nuclear weapons being stolen. The Security Center is a part of the annual $400 million U.S. program to foster nuclear security and help disrupt atomic weapons in Russia. In Israel, the Arrow anti-missile rocket developed with the Americans to intercept incoming rockets has been reported having a successful test shoot. The test development were prompted when Iraq occupied Kuwait and successfully fired a Scud missile into Israel. Also in the news, President Clinton is present at the Oslo summit to commemorate the 4th anniversary of the commemoration of the former Israeli Prime Minister, Yitzhak Rabin. President Clinton was reported as saying, "Coming here to honor the memory of Yitzhak Rabin has who gave his life to the peace process, it's a good thing to do. On a more political level, President Clinton will meet Yasser Arafat, Palestinian leader, and Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak to try and formulate new life into the peace process concerning the Middle East. President Clinton will hold a joint meeting with the two leaders tomorrow. One key issue to be discussed will be the president to make good his pledge of financial assistance to help both leaders to implement what has already been agreed. In addition to a reply to the rejected proposal by the United States Congress on a $1.5 billion package deal for the two countries. Also in the news, the national security of the daughter of Babylon could be in jeopardy. Panamanian government will be expecting to receive major military bases in the Panama Canal Zone on December 31st of this year. Under the 1977 treaty, the United States is to hand back once held military bases in Panama. This could expose an opening to the United States southern defenses, which critics say it is leaving a gap in the national security. It's interesting to note that the Panamanian government does not have an army to guard the canal. Also, a China-based shipping company has the contracts to operate port facilities at either end of the canal. The U.S. does have an escape clause to return if the canal security or the neutrality is threatened. Now back to the sign of the times with Daniel. This has been the Round the World Report with Maskil Yisrael and Ruth Yisrael.
Hi, and welcome back to Signs of the Times. We're talking to the elder priest of the New Covenant Congregation of Israel, Yaakov ben Israel, and we welcome your phone calls at this time. 770-559-2999. That's 770-559-2999. We've been talking a little bit about All Hallows Eves and some of the other pagan holidays that people have a tendency to celebrate. And it's almost like people are just kind of caught into a paralysis of sorts. You know, it's just you do these things and it's like, well, I just can't stop doing it. It's just, and the emotional ties associated with these kind of things, it's almost like I can't stop. You know, why should I stop? I can't figure out why I can't stop. Folks may desire to stop. Folks get grieved because they can't, you know, buy their kids or their loved ones gifts and they can't dress their children up. I mean, you'd be surprised all of the drama associated with some of these holidays, if you will, because people can't seem to celebrate them.
Well, you know, it works like this. People can stop doing anything they want to do. They don't want to stop, see? People walk around and say, well, I don't celebrate Christmas. I let my kids do it. What's the difference? See, they don't do it because that's what they want to celebrate these pagan holidays. It's a time for, they made it to a time where families come together, you know, haven't seen each other for rights. They haven't seen each other for a year, and they sit around the table and eat all those abominations they've been eating all their life, you know. So that's what it is, brother. I mean, the scriptures say, "This flesh of the swine you shall not eat, nor touches dead body." But when we go and look at a lot of dinners that's cooked around, you know, in them holidays, brother, I mean, everything be laced with that swine. But see, the reasons why we're off into all these things is because all of the nations are against us. We following them. See, that's what it is. We're following them, and they keep telling us, look, you do your own thing.
Right.
See, why don't you do your thing? Why you keep wanting to follow me? You see, and the thing of it is this: our people just have never done anything else, and when they go to the church, they don't realize the fact that their ministers was taught at a Christian seminary. So what do you think he's going to teach? Christ says salvation is of the Jews. See, Christ was born King of the Jews. When they crucified him, they said, this is Yeshua, King of the Jews. Zechariah told you that when the Messiah set up his kingdom, that the nation's going to grab on the coattail of him that's the Jew. And then what you have to realize is this. The power behind this new world order is Christianity. That's the power behind it. And we know that the Pope has always crowned emperors, right? And he's in line now. The Pope's in line now to crown this last king that's going to come upon the scene. See, and it's not just the Europeans that have us in captivity that are against us. It's all the nations, brother.
Plus, it's us choosing to remain in that captive state of mind.
Right, the terror from within. But the sword that's coming from out is not just coming from the Europeans. The Hispanics don't live around us unless they have to. The Asians don't live around us unless they have to, right? Everybody get away from around us simply because they know that we got those curses on it, curses on our people. America washes our linen on worldwide TV. You know, now all these nations talking about they serving the true and living God, right?
Okay.
Let me read something to you out of Zechariah 14 here.
Okay.
This is verse 1. Behold, the day of Yahweh comes, and your spoil shall be divided in the midst of you. For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle. Now, why on earth would all the nations on the earth be gathered against Jerusalem to do battle? That's the Lord's land, right? This is that one world order that's bringing all, that comprise all these nations that's coming up to Jerusalem, right? Okay, it says, for I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, and the houses rifled, and the women ravished, and half of the city shall go forth into captivity, and the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Then shall Yahweh go forth and fight against those nations as when he fought in the day of battle. And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east. Now, so that's where he left from, right?
Okay.
And he's coming right back to the Mount of Olives. See, folks talking about they're going to meet him up in the air, and they're going up to Neverland. The Lord is coming to the Mount of Olives.
Okay.
And the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof toward the east and toward the west, and there shall be a very great valley. When his feet stand upon that mountain is going to burst in half and create a very great valley there, right? And listen to this now. It says, verse 6, and it shall come to pass in that day that the light shall not be clear nor dark, but it shall be one day which shall be known unto Yahweh, not day or night, but it shall come to pass that at evening time it shall be light. See, so all the nations is coming up to Jerusalem to battle the children of Israel. Why? Because of the fact that we're God's chosen people. Now I'm going to pick this up at verse 12 here. It says, and this shall be the plague wherewith Yahweh will fight all the people that have fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. And it shall come to pass, rather, in that day, that a great tumult from Yahweh shall be among them, and they shall lay hold every one on his hand of his neighbor, and his hand shall rise up against his neighbor's hand. You see, so what Yahweh is going to do once this war starts, he's going to make them turn back against each other. It's time for the reformation of our people. It's time for the deliverance of the children of Israel.
Let's go to the phones. Caller, go ahead. State your name, please. Can we bring the call up just in the studio, Ted?
Hello?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, my name is Joshua. I was wondering, this day and age, we have many of our people, you have many mixed people. If we the children of Israel and you have mixed people, are they still considered the children of Israel?
Okay, good question. Thank you for your call.
What you might want to do is get back into the history of the children of Israel, and you're going to find out that some of the brothers that were of the 12 tribes had children from people of other nations. You see, so that mixing of the holy, Yahweh told us, don't mix our holy seed. Now, the males carry the seed, right? Now, he told us, say, look, this is why he told us, say, don't sow mingle seed together. Don't let your cattle mix with diverse kind. Well, people will say, well, God created all flesh, so I don't see any problem with, one nation of people mixing with another nation of people, right? Well, let's look at it this way. We got a lot of animals out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't never find, and look at the fowls of the heaven, you don't never find eagles and sparrows flying together, but they're birds out there, right? Anytime you take a breed dog and mix it with another dog, what do you come up with? A cur, don't you?
A new breed.
A new breed of dog, right? Something don't nobody want, right? They want the pedigrees, right? So what has happened is this. Not all of us were mixed now. I mean, we know that Master had his woman on the plantation, but we can very well look at these people that's polluted seeds and see what the deal is. And then what we have to understand is this. It's the males that carry the seed. If a black woman marries a European, a Gentile, and they have a child, that seed is Gentile. See, because the males carry the seed, right? Well, it's the same thing with us. When we mix our seed with the other nation, then that, seeing that the male carry the seed, then that child is what? He is a Hebrew.
You know what is interesting, during the day of Nehemiah, they were told to cast out all those kids and all those women and all those people, I should say, that were from another nation.
Of course.
Say, cast them folks out from among them.
Of course.
And, you know, it's kind of interesting. I guess that I can see why people have a problem with Timothy, because his father was a Greek and his mother was a Jew. It's kind of interesting, you know, that, you know, Israel was told lawfully not to deal with the people of another nation, but then you got these kind of things happening.
Well, we had a problem with Timothy, you see, because what the law has to say, see, we had a problem with Timothy, but the Europeans didn't have no problem with Timothy.
They did.
Because this is why Paul put Timothy in control, because he was a European and he had to deal with European people. This is why Paul put him in control. Paul knew what he was doing,
right?
You see, and but what he was made overseer of the church, but he wasn't allowed to change any doctrine or anything like we have gotten today. The thing that we got today wasn't even talked about,
right,
back in those days. I mean, we get it that like when Paul said we're not under the law, we're under grace, right? Everything works by law. Right. You got 365 days in a year,
absolutely,
66 in a leap year. You have 4 seasons every year, right? You have 4 phases of the moon every month, don't you? All these things are governed by law, you see. But man don't want, the only thing on the earth that's not governed by law is man.
That mouth.
Right, right.
Let's go.
Right.
Let's go to the phone. Caller, go ahead and state your name, please. Yes, go ahead.
Hey, I just think the brother's dead on with the pagan holidays. Basically, you know, the society is set up so we get off days, so we actually celebrate. We have no choice but to celebrate these off days as a holiday. As you notice, most folks get off these days, even if we want to call them pagan or whatever. I do believe they are pagan. But I'd like the brother to explain to me, why do so many Christians believe that they call him Jesus, but I say Yeshua is a Christian. Basically, there's nothing. He was a Hebrew. And trying to figure out why aren't the churches, with all these masses of black minds, continually miseducating the black minds when there's no reference to Constantine.
Thank you.
325.
Okay. Thank you for your call, brother.
Well, that brother brought up a very interesting point. Christ couldn't have been a Christian. People say Christ started Christianity. No, he didn't start anything. Christ was born King of the Jews. On the last day of his life, there was a sign over him in the languages that were spoken at that time, say, this is Yeshua, King of the Jews, right? Now, he came out of the house of Judah.
Okay.
Judah was the Jews, so wasn't he King of the Jews? Now, in Acts 11, it says the disciples were called Christians first at Antioch, right? We were called niggers first in America, right? The same people that called the apostles Christians, the Europeans, is the same one that label us niggers over here. You see, so it was their way. It was really a derogatory term that was being put upon our people. This is why Peter said, if you suffer because they call you a Christian, glorify God that you're able to suffer. You see, because it was a thing to be called a Christian back then. The Romans was busting head about it because the Europeans was grabbing onto this thing and starting their own religion. And what's his name? Caesar. Caesar had his own gods. And Caesar wasn't going to go.
God.
Yeah, you see. And Caesar wasn't going to go for that mess. That's why he tried to say the Christians, the Europeans, was burning. They burned Rome, right? When that nut Nero knew he did that himself, you know. But he put it on the Christian. I mean, they put those Europeans that was calling themselves. Our people didn't call themselves Christians because of what you can do. You can go in the book of Acts, and it's in the 11th chapter that Paul, where it says the disciples were first called Christians at Antioch. But when you go back to the 20th or the 21st chapter, 10 years later, Paul said, I'm a Jew of Tarsus. So I'm kind of inclined to believe that Paul knew what he was.
But Paul also, we do know Paul was part of the Messianic community. So for anybody that was associated with the Messianic community at the time, I mean, it was a derogatory thing. It was something that could get you killed and got folks killed.
Of course it did. They did the same thing that the Muslims did. You're gonna be a alive Muslim, a dead whatever you are.
Let's go back to the phones. Caller, go ahead. State your name, please.
Oh, yeah. My name is Charles. And I'd like to say that it's always good to see the elder priest and to hear his teachings. I agree 100% with the elder priest when he said that all of the nations of the world are against us. I think that's true. I think also that through this scheme of integration, the nations have turned us against ourselves. I remember when I was a boy that you couldn't get a black person to ride in a car, say like downtown. Now that HOV lane is being patrolled by people who have only one person in the car. And I think that even our grandparents, they would be just shocked at that. And that's my comment.
Thank you, brother, for your call. Did you want to speak to anything you had to say?
No, really.
Let's go back to the phones. Caller, go ahead. State your name, please. Caller, go ahead. And let me ask you, when you call, please turn down your television and speak right into the telephone. That's the feedback that we're getting when you call in. We're at 770-559-2999. That's 770-559-2999. You know, it's interesting, the brother was talking about Yeshua and Jesus and so forth. I had called this so-called Christian radio station and was inquiring about some airtime and so forth. And the guy said, well, you know, he said, what you believe about Jesus? I said, well, I know Yeshua is the Son of the living God. And he said, but what you believe about Jesus? I said, well, I believe Yeshua is the Son of the living God. I mean, you know, and went into the breakdown of the name and all that stuff. And he said, well, you know, I tell you, you know, we just don't have a spot.
Right.
Because if you don't deal with Jesus,
right,
you ain't got a spot.
Right. You see.
But see, there are people who get spots, and I know there's this radio program comes on whereby they use the Hebrew name, but it's cloaked under the Jesus, you know, symbol.
Of course. But see,
it's like a passport.
What I can't understand is this: how did they ever come up with Jesus out of Yeshua? Now, if they would have called him Joshua, I could have went along with that because Joshua actually means salvation of God.
Right.
You see, and Yeshua meant Yahweh's salvation. So if they would have called the brother Joshua, I could have dealt with that. But Jesus, I don't see where they got that from. You can't translate. You can't even transliterate that back to the Hebrew language. And people say, well, his name was Jesus. Well, English is only 600 years old. The Christ lived over 600 years ago.
You know what? I think what the problem is, people are pronouncing the name phonetically how it's written, as opposed to going back to the Hebrew. Because if your name is Ralph, in China, they're going to call you Ralph, no matter how it's written out.
Right.
So no matter how you phonetically pronounce the name, it's still, when you say it, it's got to be Ralph.
Right. Right.
So if it's written, you know, D-A-Y, That's rare, regardless of how it looks. It's
I
rare.
understand.
Let's go back to the phones. Caller, go ahead. State your name, please. Caller, go ahead. State your name. Do we have a call? Yeah, I think people get into the. Oh, we do have a call. Caller, go ahead. State your name, please. You're on the air. We're at 770-559-2999. That's 770-559-2999. Caller, go ahead.
Yes, my name is Quincy, and I wanted to comment how you feel about a brother trying to make it and working and stuff, but yeah, he's getting discriminated with on the job.
Well,
how would you recommend that I deal with that? Because I work for a company, and the white man gives black folks a hard time trying to make it there.
Well, good question, brother. Sometimes black folks give you just as hard a time. It just depends on the mindset. How would
Most
you
of the
deal
time,
with that?
black folks give you a harder time.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, each situation like that, brother, it has to be dealt with. You can't deal with all situations
That's
the
true.
same thing. If
That's
you
true.
don't know the underpinnings of what's going on at that company, then you can't very well deal with it. But see, what my brother have to realize is this: he's a captive.
Mm-hmm.
See?
Right.
If he keep in mind that he is a captive, then he won't have that problem. You see, because master owns the job.
He got to know who got him in captivity.
There you
and
go.
then who he's really working for.
Yes, sir.
Because he represents somebody.
Yes, sir. And he got to accept the crumbs that fall from master's table. See, he ain't putting no crumbs on master's table.
Mm-hmm.
So basically each situation is different. You have to deal with it on the way that you have to deal with it. But the way that I dealt with it when I was in the cooperative structure was this: I knew my place. See, I knew who I was. I was a captive in America, right? And so I act like I was the captive in America. They told me, said, well, we on first name basis around here. I said, right, Mr. So-and-so.
Right.
See? And the reason why I said Mr. So-and-so was simply because he was the head honcho, you see? But we on first name basis, right? No, we aren't on first name basis, because when you leave out of here and go your way and I go my way, it's still Mr. So-and-so.
Let's go back to the phones. Caller, go ahead. State your name, please.
How you doing? My name is Kay. I just wanted to make a comment about Jesus, the name Jesus, and where it stems from.
Yes, sir.
And I think, to my understanding, is that it's just part of the paganism and Zeus, the Greek god Zeus. If you look at the Latin Jesus, what it would be. So it's just really just Zeus. They just combining God that they have and just presenting it to us and telling us that's who we should worship. But I just want to say y'all brothers are doing a great job. I think this is a great opportunity for our people to share information and learn from the elder. And I'm here to support y'all. I'm probably stopped by the Covington Highway, NCCI, and y'all keep doing y'all thing.
All praise to the Most High, brother.
As long as we got breath, we're going to keep doing this thing. The thing of it is, the reason why so many things are against us, and the reason why we go in helter-skelter each kind of way, our families are being destroyed and so forth, is because it's time for our deliverance. And this is what people don't understand. Yahweh told Abraham that we'd be here 400 years. And right around the turn of the century, that 400 years it would be in place. And when you read Revelations 12 and see the markings that Satan had, he had 7 heads and 10 horns and 10 crowns. That symbolizes the same 4 empires that Daniel saw, the same 4 empires that John the Revelator saw, right? And all of these things were put on us through the adversary of the devil, through the use of the Europeans. But let me read something here.
Yeah, we got about 3 minutes left.
Okay, let me read something here out of Jeremiah 31st chapter here, my brother. This is pertaining to the setup. The covenant is written in the Old Testament.
Okay.
So this is something pertaining to what's going to happen at the time of our deliverance. I'm going to pick this up at Jeremiah 30 and verse 18.
Okay.
It says, for thus saith Yahweh, behold, I will bring again the captivity of Jacob's tent, and have mercy on his dwelling places. And the city shall be built upon her own heaps, and the palace shall remain after the manner thereof. And out of them shall proceed thanksgiving and the joy of them that make merry, and I will multiply them, and they shall not be few. I will also glorify them, and they shall not be small. Their children also shall be as before time, and their congregation shall be established before me, and I will punish all that oppress them. Their nobles shall be of themselves, and their governor shall proceed from the midst of them. And I will cause him to draw near unto me, and he shall approach unto me. For who is this that engaged his heart to approach unto me, saith Yahweh? And you shall be my people, and I will be your God, right? At the same time, saith Yahweh, will I be the God to all the families of Israel. Thus saith Yahweh, the people that was left of the sword found grace in the wilderness, even Israel, when I went to cause them to rest. So what Yahweh is in the process of doing is this. He's in the process of turning back our captivity to sin. That is to write his law in your heart and your mind, like the covenant said. That way you can walk as best as you can in this captivity in righteousness, and it's easy to do.
Well,